The 30s are a very important time of our life. This is the time when many people get married, have kids, buy their first home, and get to a place where they feel settled in their career and maybe start thinking about retirement. As someone currently in my 30s, I have started thinking critically about what are the financial goals that I want to hit in this decade of my life. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 major financial milestones or goals that you should be working towards if you want to build wealth and create a thriving life. First milestone is to get out of bad debt. And you might be asking, what is bad debt and is there good debt? The answer is yes. And I'll start by explaining what good debt is. If you look at the financial statements of any major corporation in the US, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, when you go to the balance sheet, there's always a section for assets and then liability. You will see that these great companies that are highly capitalized, they have a lot of cash. They also have debt. That type of debt is good debt. Good debt is debt or loans or liabilities that you take to generate money. So like you take out a loan to finance a business, and that business has significant cash flows enabling you to pay off your debt. That is good debt. But the vast majority of people in their 20s and 30s have what you would call bad debt. Bad debt is typically consumer debt. Any debt or any loan that you have taken out to spend on something that you consumed. Credit card debt, car payments, these are examples of consumer or bad debt. And any loan or debt that has an interest rate higher than 5% is definitely bad debt. In your 30s, you want to get to a place where you have zero bad debt. You don't have any credit card debt, you don't have any car payments. If possible, you want to even pay off your student loans if you have that. The only debt that is okay for you to carry into your 40s is maybe a mortgage. And there are 3 main reasons why it is important for you to have zero bad debt. The first one is because your 30s are your prime earning years. This is the time in your career when, your bargaining power is pretty high. You are young enough to take career risk, and you're also old enough and maybe you have enough experience to take on managerial positions, to take on more responsibilities, and you're earning a lot of money. In this prime earning years, your goal should be to accumulate as much money as possible in your savings and investments so that they have a long time to compound for retirement. So for example, let's say you're 35 years old and you plan to retire when you're 65. You have 30 years ahead of you. If you put away just $100,000 right now, and that money grows at the S&P 500 average return of 10% over 30 years, and you don't take anything away from that money, by the time you are 65, that money would have become $1.7 million. That is a massive growth, all thanks to the power of compounding. So in your 30s, you want the majority of your money to accumulate, to be compounding, instead of going into paying, bad consumer debt. Another reason why you need to get rid of bad debt is because debt typically adds complexities to our lives and reduces our wiggle room. Again, if you're in your 30s, you now have different responsibilities. So let's say that you have children, right? And your kids have a medical emergency. In 1 month, your regular budget includes around $3,000 in debt payments. That's your regular budget. But something happened, you have an emergency. Maybe your kids have a medical emergency, or your aging parents, have a medical emergency. If a lot of your money is already going into debt payments, you have little wiggle room to, meet the different emergencies or complexities that may come up, right? And what this typically leads to, if you're not careful, is it will lead to you taking more, bad debt. So you max out a credit card to go on vacation. You max out a credit card for, a health issue. And this can become a perpetuating circle if you are not careful, in which you are unable to live your life and meet your everyday expenses because of this bad debt. If you have, let's say, student loan payment that is spread out over 20 years, what you eventually see is that you are paying a lot more money in interest payments over that 20-year period versus if you paid out that student loan in 5 years. So being aggressive about paying off your student loan, paying off any debt payment that you have, would actually save you money in the long term. Because let's say you pay an extra $5,000 in interest rate payment. That is money that could have gone into savings. It could have gone into a fancy vacation for your family. It could have gone into something that will actually add joy and happiness into your life. I'll definitely give you enough reasons why you should get rid of bad debt. It's very easy to do. No matter where you are right now in your 30s, right? Look at all your consumer debt and make a plan within the next 1 or 2 years to aggressively pay down, those debts as much as possible. The second milestone that you want to make sure you hit in your 30s is to increase your credit score above 800. So credit scores typically range from 300 to 850. And credit scores become very important when you are trying to make large ticket purchases. And these are the type of purchases that you typically do in your 30s. For example, buying a home, getting a mortgage. Your credit score is crucially important. Someone that has a credit score of around 700 can get an interest rate that is 2 to 3% higher than someone who has a credit score above 800. And you may be saying, 2 to 3% higher interest rate is not that bad. But hold on, 2 to 3% interest rate on a $1 million house or a $500,000 house is a lot of money. Again, this is just free money that you're giving to the bank or whoever your lender is that you could have saved if you had the financial discipline, to have a high credit score. And having a high credit score is not that difficult. The first step is to not take out debt for anything that you cannot pay off outright. So if you cannot afford a purchase in cash, do not pay for it with your credit. That's the first step. After that, any other credit balance that you have, make sure that you pay off your credit cards at the end of every month. Do not carry a balance. It's just free interest money that you are giving to the bank that you can save. And make sure that you do not use more than 30% of your credit limit. So if your credit limit is $10,000, make sure that you're not spending more than $3,000 of that credit, and whatever you use, make sure that you pay it off at the end of every month. If you maintain this financial hygiene, financial discipline, your credit score would grow. It will rise, as time passes, as your income increases, your credit score would increase. And before you know it, you'll be in that elite space of having above 800 credit score, and you make sure that you're not paying any extra money on interest. Third financial milestone that you want to have in your 30s is to have a well-funded emergency fund. Emergency funds are very common, right? You will hear everyone saying, put away money 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. And you may even already have an emergency fund that you've been building for many years. And if you have, that's great. But again, in your 30s, as your life changes, you get married, you have kids, you have a house, your income increases and your expenses also increases as well. Your emergency fund should be getting bigger, right? You should be aiming to have at least 12 months of living expenses saved up in a high yield savings account. The reason why this is important is because in your 30s, the emergency expenses that you have are typically going to be more expensive. So let's say you have a house, right? And you have a leaky roof or you have a faulty appliance. These can run up to thousands and thousands of dollars. Versus when you are in your 20s, emergency expenses could have just been like $200. So it's very important that you have money saved up so that these events do not catch you unawares. And a good way to stay on top of your emergency fund is to review your emergency fund every 6 months. Every 6 months, you want to be looking at what you have saved up and ensure that you have multiples of your current expenses saved up. And you want to put that money in a liquid investment vehicle like a high yield savings account. If you don't have an emergency fund yet and you're in your 30s, today is the best time to start. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming goal. You can take it as little as possible, as little as putting away $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month. Fourth milestone that you absolutely need in your 30s is you want to create a second income source. As you get older, as you get more settled in your career, it is very important for you to diversify your income. Every millionaire, every billionaire that you see, they have diversified assets, diversified income. Even people like, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they invest in a range of things. They have stocks, they have bonds, they have art pieces, they have real estate assets. And this is important because the economy is very fickle, right? The economy always goes through up and down years, and if your income is tied to one thing, especially for many of us, your job, your entire income, your entire standard of living is highly at risk because, God forbid something happens to the industry that you are in, massive layoff occurs or a business closes down, and all of a sudden, the income has dried up. So in your 30s, as you have, again, more responsibilities, more expenses, it is just wise to diversify your income. An article in Forbes magazine says that the average millionaire has at least 7 different sources of income. Yes, 7. And these income streams can be very varied, right? It could be your salary, it could be business income, it could be rental income, it could be income from stocks, bonds, or other assets. Diversify your income reduces your risk in the event of a change in the market or other life change. And it's very easy to diversify your income. If you have extra time from your job, you can look into getting a side hustle. You could invest in real estate, invest in businesses. If you know a very smart, capable friend who is launching a startup, you could give them a bit of money. You can diversify your investment class. So instead of investing only S&P 500 or in the stock market, you can look into bonds, look into the money market, look into real estate securities, look into venture capital, and other different types of investment. Let me know if you want me to make a video about other sources of income that you can create in your 30s. The 5th financial milestone that you should aim for in your 30s is to buy a home or buy any form of real estate asset. A home basically is an asset whose value grows over time. A home can also be a source of income. You can buy a home, and rent it out, or use it for Airbnb or shortlet, and this can generate income for you. Owning a home begins to make sense in your 30s when you have, higher income, you have your emergency funds saved up, you have a good credit score, and when you're also experiencing life changes like getting married and starting a family. And owning a home versus renting a home allows you to build up what is called equity. So think about it this way: if you're renting a 2-bed apartment in a place like Chicago or New York, you're paying $4,000 to $7,000 a month on rent. This is money that if you are paying it as a mortgage, instead on your own home, you are building that as equity, and this belongs to you. Equity is the portion of your property that you actually own, and your equity can increase by your mortgage payment and also the appreciation of the value of the home. This equity is an asset that you can leverage to meet your financial needs, like getting a home equity loan or lines of credit. So let's say you have a home and you've paid your mortgage for many years, you've built up your equity to a good amount, and also the value of that home has grown, and then eventually you're in your 40s, you're 45, and you have a great idea to start a business. You can leverage that equity to raise money to launch your own business. Whereas if you just continue renting all those years, you never had an asset to fall back on. In addition to this equity, homeowners also enjoy a lot of tax incentives. There are various tax deductions that can reduce the cost of owning a home. Deductions like mortgage interest, property taxes, and some other costs involved in buying a home. These are all deductions that you can get and save you money off taxes. And I just personally think that owning a home in your 30s is like an adult thing to do. It's like a grown thing. It's like you're grown now, you should own a home. And the last financial milestone, and I think this is a huge goal for many of us, including myself, is to have 3 times of your income saved by the time you are 40. So I was messing around on the internet and I came across the article by Fidelity that talks about how much do you need to retire. And your 30s is a very good time to begin to think about what retirement looks like. When you eventually retire, yes, retirement could be many, many years ahead of you, but when you eventually retire, what's the quality of life that you want to be able to afford? What's your life expectancy? How do you want to be financially? I personally know that when I retire, I want to be financially independent. I don't want to be dependent on anyone to meet my financial needs. I want to be able to maintain my lifestyle. So that includes traveling, shopping, going for brunch. Like I love the nice things of life. But this is the time in your 30s to begin to think about that, creating a vision of what kind of life you want to live, and most important, saving and preparing in advance for that. And according to this article by Fidelity, most people will need to save 3 times their current income by the time that they are 40 to be able to maintain their lifestyle into retirement. Depending on what you earn, that may be, a large amount of money. And when I did the math, I was like, oh my God. But I think this is a worthy goal and milestone to begin to work toward. Think about it this way. The earlier you have this money, the longer that money has to compound. So let's say you are 30, you are 35, and you have a good amount, maybe 2x of your yearly income saved. You still have about 30 years for that money to compound, giving you enough buffer, right, into retirement. And the way to do this, in my opinion, is to watch out for lifestyle creep. Again, in your 30s, your earning potential is at its prime. you are probably getting, increase in salaries, as you're getting promoted, you're getting bonuses from work. In your 30s, you want to aggressively fight against lifestyle creep. Try your best to maintain your lifestyle as much as possible and put away as much money as you can, for retirement, for the time when you are no longer as active or as young, or your skills are just no longer in high demand as now that you are in your 30s. Let me know which of these milestones resonated and that you would like to work on. Personally, my current goal is to get my credit score up as high as I can. And if you are keen on building wealth, then you should definitely check out my video up here about the greatest lessons that I've learned about building wealth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.